This is Dr. Rob Harder with the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, Making Your World Better. What does it take to be an effective nonprofit leader today? What are the biggest challenges? What are the biggest obstacles? How should nonprofits fundraise in an economy that is constantly changing? All of these reasons combined led me to start this show. And it's my hope that through this series, people can learn not only what it takes to be an effective nonprofit organization, but to hear from effective leaders who are successfully making a positive impact in their communities. We hope you enjoy the show, as together we hear how they are making their world better. Well, one of the challenges for an effective nonprofit leader right now is getting the right information so you can make solid financial decisions to help your organization thrive. Well, to do this, you need the best accounting and donation software. Researching, learning, and maintaining software can get really costly. So let me save you some time and money. Applos just might be the solution you're looking for. Applos is made specifically for nonprofits to manage fund accounting, donations, and your people. So go to nonprofit.applos.com to see how it works and get your 15-day free trial. As a nonprofit leader, you eventually realize you can't do everything yourself. But hiring is complicated. Volunteers have other demands on their time, and what if you only need part-time help anyway? Well, Belay, an innovative staffing solution, has successfully matched thousands of organizations with part-time virtual assistants, bookkeepers, and social media strategists. Let Belay help you become a more effective and successful nonprofit leader, making a positive impact in the community by helping you juggle less and accomplish more. Just go to Belay, BELAY solutions.com/nonprofit leadership. Well, one of my goals with this podcast is, first of all, to bring you some of the best leaders and nonprofit thinkers to inspire you to become a better leader. But I've also had as a goal to bring you some great tools and resources that are there for nonprofit organizations and leaders just like you to utilize in order to make your organization better. Well, this episode is focused on tools and resources to help your organization improve, specifically with your digital online presence and your fundraising. My guest today is Justin Wheeler. He's the co-founder and CEO of Funraise. As a social entrepreneur, Justin helped start two successful nonprofits, both of which became multi-million-dollar organizations. And he brings over 10 years of experience from the nonprofit sector and was an early team member of Invisible Children, which raised over $50 million in the first 8 years of operation. Well, thanks, Justin, for being on the show. I understand you're the co-founder and CEO of Funraise. Give us a quick overview of your company and how can it help my listeners in their everyday work?
Absolutely. Well, first off, Rob, thanks so much for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it. Before I tell you a little bit about Funraise, let me just take a few seconds to tell you my backstory. I spent 12 years in the nonprofit industry, started two nonprofit organizations. My expertise is in digital fundraising. During that 12 years, raised about $100 million through online campaigns. And the common pain point I had on day one through, the last day on year 12 was just the technology that I was using wasn't streamlined. We were duct taping a lot of different software and products together. And so it really is that experience is what inspired me to start Funraise, which is an all-in-one platform. Everything from nonprofit CRM, to their email marketing communications, to online fundraising, peer-to-peer crowdfunding, events management, ticketing. I mean, the list could go on in terms of the different products that we offer. But it's really the goal of Funraise is to help nonprofits streamline their fundraising technology and to make it more efficient and effective as they do their important work.
That's awesome. That's one of the things, one of my goals here with this nonprofit podcast is to really not only provide great speakers and nonprofit thinkers, but resources and tools that actually can help, nonprofit organizations of all shapes and sizes. And you do that. You offer all kinds of resources for nonprofit leaders through through Funraise. So as you think about fundraising today, what in your opinion has changed in, say, the last 5 to 10 years when it comes to fundraising in the nonprofit space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think and this was happening well before the pandemic hit, but the pandemic has accelerated this concept, and that concept is we are living in a digital first economy, and the pandemic has only really underscored the importance of that, and the importance being for nonprofits to really take a look at their fundraising approach. A lot of organizations are stuck in just old school fundraising that is and these are the types of organizations that aren't experiencing a lot of growth today. And so I think the sort of changes that we're seeing and that's going to continue to accelerate into 2021 and beyond is that organizations have to have a virtual first approach to fundraising. It doesn't mean that they have to throw out their traditional fundraising tactics, but there should be plans, there should be strategies created for more virtual engagements, for more ways to engage with donors virtually, ways to steward donors in a way that doesn't require jumping on a plane and flying to a different state. And so I think this is a pretty critical time for organizations to really think through their digital approach and ensuring that it's a virtual approach and it's virtual first as we're going through this transformation in the economy and in each city that we all live in around the country today.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really, really good point. In fact, I've asked a lot of my guests on this show a similar question. With all the changes we're seeing in our world, the downward trend of charitable giving in general over the last several years, and then, of course, the challenges today of COVID, do you think that nonprofits should fundamentally change the way they do fundraising?
I think that nonprofits should take a step back and look at the multiple different revenue channels that they have and take a look at sort of the performance of those channels over the last 3 to 5 years. A lot of times we get stuck in what's familiar, what we think works. But if you start to, really start to dissect or diagnose sort of, channel by channel performance, the cost, the cost of revenue, the cost of donations, you start to find some really interesting things about the overall efficiency of your fundraising performance. And so I think organizations need to be doing this, regardless of pandemic or not, need to be doing this on an annual basis to ensure that their approach is effective and it's reaching the right people and it's cost effective and so forth. But certainly organizations need, especially organizations who haven't taken this jump. These are the organizations that are suffering a lot more today than more modern-based, fundraising approaches, organizations that just don't have a digital audience. And they need to work on building that digital audience. They need to work on reaching donors across different channels that exist today on the internet, and they need to create strategies to cultivate and steward donors in that regard. So I think this will be a fundamental change in nonprofit fundraising. Fundraising is very relational, and fundraisers and donors, I think, appreciate that relational aspect of it. But I do think we're going to see that change. We're going to see that flip. We're going to see, we don't actually have to fly 3,000 miles across the country to meet with this major donor. We can do a Zoom call. And so organizations need to be thinking about that. And I think, the downward trend that we're seeing, it's interesting because typically, charitable giving is reflective of the economy. And one of the main drivers that we look to for the economy is the stock market. But we need to understand, especially in 2020, the stock market is not the economy, right? The stock market is booming. I mean, it's having all-time highs over the last several weeks, especially. But we have to look at, the unemployment rate. How many people have lost their jobs? How many people are not working? And that's how we can get an understanding for why is charity trending downward. And I think that we also need to look at different segments. So we need to look at different types of organizations, different categories of organizations. We look across our customer base. We're seeing a lot of growth. We're seeing organizations that are going to 2x or 3x their revenue this year, and during one of the most unprecedented times in history. And so I think there's just a lot that we have to work through to understand. For some organizations, they're going to have their best years, and for others, it's going to be tougher. And so I think it goes back to the root of the question is, well, what's our approach to fundraising, and what should it look like this year and next year and beyond?
Well, one of the challenges for an effective nonprofit leader right now is getting the right information so you can make solid financial decisions to help your organization thrive. Well, to do this, you need the best accounting and donation software. Researching, learning, and maintaining software can get really costly. So let me save you some time and money. Aplos just might be the solution you're looking for. Aplos is made specifically for nonprofits to manage fund accounting, donations, and your people. So go to nonprofit.aplos.com to see how it works and get your 15-day free trial. Hey everybody, Rob here. Thanks so much for listening to the Nonprofit Leadership Podcast. If this is your first time listening to us, I wanted to make sure you're aware of a whole group of other episodes with fascinating guests that I previously interviewed. Just go to our website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. There you'll find numerous interviews of nonprofit leaders from all over the country, and even from different countries, all trying to make their world better. I also want to make sure you knew about how to get some more great content. When you go to our website, just look at the top right section of the homepage under the words subscribe. You can simply type in your email address, and then you will be added to our monthly email update. In addition to getting great access to some superb content, you'll get the latest podcast shows right to your inbox. Now, this way, you'll never miss any of the interviews or content on this show. If you have any questions or comments, do not hesitate to email us. Thanks again for listening. Now back to the show. You know, it's really interesting you say that, because I think certainly for now, you're absolutely right. There's a separation between what the stock market is doing and what the economy is doing. They don't necessarily sync up. And certainly we're seeing that right now, because I know the nonprofit that I lead will tell you that there are more people that are coming to food pantries than ever. Our unemployment is not doing great yet. It depends on, I'm sure, the area of the country you're in. But overall, our economy is still struggling. And yet the stock market is going crazy, like you said. And so it's really fascinating that you bring that up. Now, as you think about fundraising, tools and resources, I understand what's great about what you're offering is that you offer some free fundraising products. Now, free is always good for nonprofits. People love free options. Now, at the same time, right, free can sometimes send the wrong message, right? That it's too good to be true, or you get what you pay for, and therefore maybe not that valuable. I know what you offer is very valuable with your resources. So talk about your philosophy a bit about providing free tools, and why do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So first off, I 100% agree. If something is free, the quality is probably not great. And in the case of Funraise, I'm happy to say that's just not the case. Over the last 6 years, we've invested $20 million into our product. So we've raised venture capital. We've put a lot of capital behind the software, the technology that we've innovated. So it is a world-class platform that is helping organizations grow and scale and just be more efficient. The reason why we opened up a free tier relatively recently is because we saw this technology gap in the nonprofit sector. Right? The big organizations, about 20% of, you look at the 1.4 million nonprofits in the U.S. today, 20% of them have budget to afford world-class technology like Funraise. The other 80% just can't, and so they have to use the other free stuff that generally isn't that great. And so we wanted to kind of bridge that divide and offer organizations that are making enormous impact but have smaller budgets the ability to grow with Funraise. And so we offer them a subset of the tools. And then, secondly, from a strategic perspective, the way people are buying software today is changing. 10 years ago, how you would sell software is you would try to go directly to the decision maker, directly to the CEO, whoever was going to be the person signing the contract, and you would try to get their buy-in. That's completely flipped on its head. It's the users who are actually buying the software. And so if we can open up Funraise to free, regardless of if you're a $500,000 nonprofit or a $100 million nonprofit, it's that user who's going to drive the sort of decision to buy more of what Funraise offers if they have a good experience and they like it. And so we're incentivized as a company to build really great product, to add a ton of value at the free level so that you're going to want to buy more product as you grow and as you see Funraise as a value add, not just another piece of technology. So those are the couple reasons why we decided to do it. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that we're offering a free product that some organizations are paying six figures for. And so it's a good product that you're gonna love it. And you're gonna have a good experience with the value that it provides to your organization.
I love that. And again, I do think I looked at your website, you've got some great resources, and I encourage my listeners to check it out. Depending on where you are, small, large, medium-sized nonprofits, there's some great products for you. And so I'm kind of curious, with all the different offerings that you have on your website and through Funraise, if my listeners could only choose one of your products, which one would be the most useful for them and why?
That's a great question. So it really depends on sort of the stage the nonprofit's at. But if organizations are looking for an immediate, return, an immediate sort of lift on their fundraising activity, I would say that our peer-to-peer functionality would be a great place to start. With that, you can build fundraising websites, progress bars, invite your supporters to create their own fundraising pages. And then we also integrate with Facebook and Instagram and Twitch and other sort of channels that really allow organizations to spread out their influence across their donor base. And it's a great opportunity to acquire new donors. So generally, we see our customers who launch peer-to-peer campaigns, see the return right away just in terms of dollars. And so I would say that's probably a great place to start, whether you are doing, a version of peer-to-peer fundraising today or not. It's a great tool. It's great for Giving Tuesday, which obviously was yesterday, but it's even better for end-of-year fundraising. So lots of value that I think can be extracted from our peer-to-peer fundraising tool set.
Well, excellent. And one of the things I do like about your approach is that you've had real life experience leading nonprofits. You've done a lot of fundraising. You've been successful at it. What do you think as you, I'm thinking about listeners now that maybe are at a place where because of COVID, or maybe even before COVID, they really are struggling to make progress. They're not sure how to continue to move forward and really build their donor base. In addition to using the tools that you have to offer, what's some advice you would give them when it comes to fundraising? What have you learned along the way that you would want to pass on to emerging leaders that are really trying to figure this fundraising conundrum out?
The thing that we often overlook is when we're thinking about growing revenue and just growing the organization, we think that we have to acquire a bunch of new donors to do that. And, acquiring new donors is important and healthy. But organizations that can focus on their own retention of donors and also have a better understanding or more insight around the capacity of their current donor file is incredibly important. As a kind of quick example, when I was at Liberty, North Korea, we had a recurring donor who's giving $15 a month for 3 years. This isn't a donor that our major gift team wouldn't pay too much attention to. $15 a month is monthly is nice, but it's not life changing. We started to provide more insights through our functionality, and so through Funraise Giving, we actually do different variations of wealth data scanning and social demographic scanning. And through this donor, we were able to fund it. That person had a lot more capacity. And so we ended up meeting, and that person now is giving $100,000 a year to the organization. And so understanding your donor base, understanding the capacity that they have to give, and then creating what I like to call, stewardship plans that get donors to be more compelled, to buy more into the mission of the organization. What does it take for that person to go from $15 to $1,000 to $20,000 and to $100,000? What does that pathway look like? They have to care. They have to be compelled. They have to be bought into the mission. So I think, especially now during a time where it's hard to know who is impacted by the pandemic in terms of financially and who's not, really focusing inward on your donor file, understanding their capacity, understanding where they're at, I think is going to lead to your success in 2021. And then, of course, trying new things like peer-to-peer fundraising, social fundraising. These will inevitably be helpful, but I think it's important to also understand your own donor file and what their capacity is and how much expansion opportunity there is if you can compel them to do more.
If I'm thinking of a listener that says, okay, what's my first step? I've heard your pitch. I think there's some great things. I'll check out your website. What would be kind of the first step you'd recommend for someone who really wants to move forward, improve their fundraising strategy, and to really see some positive momentum when it comes to development?
That's a great question. I could take that in so many different directions. But I'll answer it from the perspective of like the person asking this question from a digital perspective, because I think there are different approaches. There are different ways you can answer this. And it reminds me of what someone recently told me when we were talking about websites. And they said most nonprofits treat their website like an expense, not a program. And nonprofits should treat their websites like programs because they would inevitably put more attention into it, and they would drive more conversion, better experiences for their donors, and so forth. So I would say if an organization that's not successful at raising money online, it's most likely because you're not providing an experience that online donors want. And so think about that. Take a look at your website. What does the giving experience look like? And is your content compelling? Are you telling your story in a way that is going to inspire someone to give? People give off of emotion, not logic. And so is the content on your website, creating this visceral emotional reaction that someone's willing to pull out their credit card and you make a contribution on your website? So I would say look at the top of the funnel, look at your site, look at the content, and make sure that you're providing an experience that people can appreciate and at least are used to, right? People are buying, organizations say all the time, our donors aren't digital donors. And I think that's really just an excuse. Your donors are buying things on Amazon. Your donors are subscribers to Netflix, to Spotify, whatever it might be. They know how to do things online. It's just you're not optimized for their experience. And so that's it's conceptual. It's not like super practical, but I think this is a big area that nonprofits need to improve on to be more effective at raising money online.
You bring up a really, really good point, and I think especially now with COVID, but even before that, you're right. People navigate online all the time, and they purchase things from Amazon. They go to Walmart.com. I mean, they're buying things online on a regular basis and more now. And so you're right. I think the old maybe excuse or just the thought, well, people just don't often give to nonprofits online. It's just not true. And all the data is showing that now, that more and more people of all age demographics are feeling more comfortable about giving to nonprofits online. So really good point. I think people are going to want to know a little bit more about your organization. So how can people find out more about you and more about Funraise? Where would you send them?
Yeah, so in regards to Funraise, you can go to our website. It's funraise.org. That's funraise.org. And if you want to just trial out Funraise, click Get Started, and you can create a free account in 2 minutes. Right? So you can jump into our software. You can launch a giving form. You can embed it on your site. You can create a giving page. Whatever you want to do, you can do that all within just a couple of minutes and at no cost. You won't have to enter a credit card. You just go in and get started there. So that's one way, super practical, easy to do, and you can learn more about the product from that experience. With me, if you want to connect to me, I always like talking to nonprofits. You can find me on LinkedIn. I post daily on LinkedIn. I also have my own podcast that I run. So just look up Justin Wheeler on LinkedIn. You should be able to find me. And would love to connect with you listeners.
That's great. Well, again, my listeners, I encourage you to check it out, Funraise. Just some great ideas. And I looked at the website. There's full of different resources that if you're really kind of stuck or you're just looking for something new to help you really improve your online presence, and certainly when it comes to fundraising and development to really get some positive momentum moving in the right direction, I encourage you to check out Funraise and Justin as well. Again, Justin, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for taking time to sharing your insights today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's really fun.
Well, we're excited to have Aplos as the sponsor of this nonprofit podcast. And what's unique about Aplos is that they are dedicated not only to providing you with the best tools, but also to offering free training from their in-house experts and CPAs. Right now, you can get access to a solid webinar on 5 essential financial reports for nonprofit leaders. To get access, go to nonprofit.aplos.com. Hey friends, I wanted you to know that this podcast can be found on both iTunes and Spotify. If you're wondering how to find it, just type in the words Nonprofit Leadership Podcast, and this podcast should show up. We also encourage you, when you go on iTunes, let us know what you think. Give us a review. Give us a rating. We would love to hear what you think of this podcast, and your feedback will help expand this podcast to get it out to as many people as possible. You can also find other resources and interviews of past guests on my website, nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Again, that website is nonprofitleadershippodcast.org. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep making your world better.